This with us and an interesting topic in data. So I think the whole aspect of being creative within data and sort of trying to create marketing which can actually look more jazzy beyond Excel sheets, numbers, all of that. I'm going to let the interesting panel talk a little about what they're doing in their relevant areas of work in terms of how they are able to actually sort of try and boost their own brand and marketing through data. So we can start with Ben.
Okay. So if we're going to talk about branding and data, then I'd say some of the stuff that we've been doing is very much programmatically led, where we use data to understand the consumer and then create sort of very customized programmatic messages and creative, which we push against users. So to give you an example, something we're doing for a car insurance brand, you go to their website, you take a quote, you do not buy. We will cookie the system with the car model, the year, the quote price, and whether they're male or female, and the actual number plate. And then we follow the user around with a creative, which is of the car, of the user as well, so whether they're male or female, and the actual number plate, and push that out as a creative. So it's very, very contextual, very, very highly targeted with the price of their quote as well. So it's sort of a dynamic creative, which is custom built using data and very sort of from a branding perspective, we're finding that this particular ad unit is doing phenomenally well and getting very, very good sort of engagement rates because it's so customized to the consumer that the consumers are obviously they're seeing their car following them around with them. So that's the sort of stuff we do, and it's from a branding and creating awareness. It's those sort of innovations like that we find that is really driving, especially the digital space anyway. But.
Kushal, I'm absolutely confused.
Confused?
Yeah, because I thought this was about brand transformation.
Yeah.
Is it?
It is.
Okay, because you said brand and data.
Yes, in a data.
Okay, all right. So I think the brand transformation is not just about transforming the image of the brand. It's much more than that. And you have to look at the transformation of a brand depending on where the brand is in a company. So for example, if you have a company with only one brand, then it becomes much easier to transform the brand because you're actually trying to transform the company and the brand sort of follows.
Sure.
So if the CEO and the company starts to change its culture and starts to focus on the customer and create more value for the customer, you've transformed the brand. It becomes much more difficult in a company where you have a number of brands because the brand can't really influence the rest of the company. So the guy who's running the brand has to look at not a big picture, but a smaller picture of how he can create much more value for the brand, how he can create much more value for the customer, how he can create things like trust, integrity, and a feeling of belonging to the brand. So he's got to transform the brand from an entirely different perspective because the rest of the company may not be doing the same kinds of things.
Sure.
Okay.
So I'll just like to add more to what Gautam said. I think there are two basic ways to transform a brand. You can either do what Apple, Xerox, or Burberry did by actually transforming, your whole company strategy, focusing on core products and what products to take to the consumer. Or my personal favorites would be, what Blendtec did, or what Volvo did, or basically what FC UK did. So I like the latter guys. What these guys did, they identified something that's not been yet identified and promoted by the consumers, and they take something which is their key strength and promote it. So what Blendtec did, it was formed in 1975, but till 2000, they did not see the kind of sales that they wanted to. So Tom Dixon, he just came up with an idea of let's blend something. We all heard yesterday Vivek also speak about that. He just made a simple viral video on blending, golf balls, marbles, credit cards, McDonald's value meals, and obviously the iPhone, the most famous one. And he just put that video out there in the digital platform in the year 2006, and it let people, viral that out for him. And what happened to the brand? They did not change anything in their product strategy. They did not change the product. The blenders are the same. But the prices shot up by 4 times because customers perceive them as a premium brand. Also with FC UK, what Stephen Marks did was, the company was formed in 1970, but he identified the initials in the year 2000 and started promoting it as FC UK, a smart strategy, I think, according to me, that made the brand stand out and gain its own place in the marketplace. So I think these two strategies are phenomenal for any brand to identify, either do I go the Apple way or the Xerox way, or do I go what FC UK and Blendtech did. So for that, you have to have really smart marketers to identify what your brand stands for and what do you want to do by transforming the brand.
So brands have always been about experiences, right? And more specifically, customer experiences. I think if data allows you to know just a little more about what the customer expects when, which customer expects when, you can transform the experience and therefore the brand. And customers, and I keep saying this, customers are very simple. They know what they want, or what information, or what value they want at what point of time. We run around in circles because we don't know what they want, right? But if you knew at every point of time what someone is looking for, and you had an answer for the someone, not for everyone, that's brand transformation. Because finally experiences build brands, not advertising, not marketing, not anything else that you do. And product is part of experience, price is part of experience, CRM is part of experience, the call center is part of experience. But if data can help you do just that one little thing, it can help you transform your brand. And at least that's the little bit that I have figured in the last few years working with brands, online and offline.
So we heard in terms of, I think, someone spoke about innovation, someone spoke about experience, someone spoke about the fact of striking one chord and making it all big. But say, for example, in a category which is like yourself, sort of, for insurance, which you really can't differentiate one from another. So how does one really sort of go around in a category where you have, more often than not, you just cannot really sort of talk so much about brand empowerment or brand philosophy and all of those things. So how do you sort of really think of ways to sort of, I think, get more closer to customers using data and sort of, I think, making your brand stand out?
So yeah, you're right, Kushal. There's not much of product differentiation because you can't see and touch the product in insurance.
Right.
So I think one key differentiator that you can, add to your product is, the customer service. So when we were the first ones to launch in 2009 with the online term insurance product, we were the only ones. So word of mouth got us to a great distance. We built up a customer base, but then suddenly there were 16 players in the next year who wanted to share of the pie. But being the pioneers, what it helped us understand is we had the gap, we had the understanding of what does a consumer expect in this space. So we had a lot of data over the past 1 year, which our competitors do not have the advantage of understanding. So we knew that the pet thing that really puts off customers is, when they apply for something online and they don't have the same experience that comes offline, they get really pissed off. So if I'm buying through an agent, he keeps me posted. I just have to pick up the phone and ask him what happened to my policy, and he'll keep me posted about every step on what is the issuance, when is the policy to be issued, when can I expect my policy coming home. So we realized this is the most important aspect and we should fix this. So we worked hard at fixing that bit in the first year, and that is what has kept us ahead. And we have kept winning the e-business leader award for the last 2 years in spite of very big names being in this industry. We're one of the latest entrants in the insurance industry, but we have taken the leap in the digital space because we look at data very closely and understand what consumers expect, and we go out and give that to them.
So Ramneet, you've been on, I think, the brand side, and you've been on the sort of servicing side, like an agency function as well. So say, for example, in your experience at McDonald's, so for example, how challenging was it for a brand which is sort of always seen as an international MNC, and one of the sort of examples we keep giving, saying that they got it completely right by Indianizing the veg aloo tikki burger. Was it something which sort of just happened impulsively? Was there research, and therefore how was the brand transformed from being a multinational to being sort of very Indian here?
I don't think McDonald's has ever transformed into an Indian brand. And the few times that McDonald's did try to be Indian is the times it fell and stumbled. But finally, a burger and fries brand can never be an Indian brand. Indianized, yes. Indian, no. The answer to your question is simple. Yeah, McDonald's, like all retail, uh, relies on data to the point of single customer interactions, and therefore data is the backbone of most insight at McDonald's. And it's a good thing because it works for them. But data doesn't substitute common sense and intuitive logic and so on and so forth. So some of the aloo tikki type of examples really happened from empirical sort of observational data. But a lot of the other stuff actually got thrown back as real live data coming in from customers, daily, hourly, sometimes by the minute. So it's a mix of both. Uh, I I sometimes struggle in these conversations because it's there is no black and white here. Data is not the answer to insight. Insight
Sure.
is not the answer to data. Uh, you know, saying that genius can come from outside of data does not undermine the value of data, and so on and so forth. It's just that in the real world now, and, retail companies in particular, and you'll know that you can actually create precision in customer experience. And that's the power of data, because customers don't care where you got your answer from. What they care about is what the answer was when they were at that point in looking for it. And so I think if data can allow you to do that, which it does allow McDonald's to do, and I'm sure many other retail brands that you've dealt with, then power to the customer.
It's interesting. We're back to data, and in the earlier discussion, Dipali mentioned, and I think the other panelists mentioned in terms of data about smart marketing at the moment, all of that. So, Gautam, what do you think in terms of if a brand was to transform just within, is it possible to transform, firstly, a brand thought within just, say, for example, a week?
I'm sure it's possible, and I'm sure some people have been able to do that.
Okay.
But I think the basic transformation has to come in the way companies perceive their products and perceive their business.
Yeah.
So take Apple, entirely different example. Apple puts products ahead of profits.
Sure.
Apple doesn't really do any of the
Gimmicky stuff.
data stuff. They conceptualize something and they come up with it, and that's how they transform their company into being real leaders. Then it's left up to the brand managers to do the different things that need to be done so that everything comes to the consumer as a related effort from a company. So I think so that's one aspect. The other one, which you talk about data, we work more with macro data, okay, and we find that most companies miss macro data. So why does someone buy from you? And there are two basic things that cause people to buy from you. One is price, and one is the benefits they get from you. And that's what value is all about. Now, if for example, you're selling salt or you're selling fertilizer, the benefits of the product are not there really, because everyone else is
Sure.
selling exactly the same thing. So what makes those guys buy? And so your customers are buying on the basis of the brand. So if you go to fertilizer, if 50% of the reason for buying is the brand, which is the case in, let's
Sure.
say, Tata Fertilizer, then you have to focus on those things within the brand, and what we found within the brand, the important things, or the things that made up the image actually was the brand of the company, the brand of the product, the trust that they had with the company, and the relationship they had with the company. Those were the things that built up the brand. And if you knew, just from the point of view,
Sure.
if you knew that the relationship was 50% of the image,
Yeah.
then you would focus on the relationship.
So any other challenge that you've personally seen, Ben, in terms of, say, for example, if you've had to deal with marketers who sort of, I think, are always trying to say, hey, give me X SOV, try and uplift my brand by X or Y percentage, and at the same time are obsessed with saying, I also need some CTR, some X or Y. How do you sort of, how do you sort of combat those questions? Because they're trying to sort of, I think, give you 6 KPIs at the same time, and at the end of the day, say, what, build my brand.
So I'm a firm believer of sort of defining one KPI and working to that. So I'll always push it back.
Wow.
Because at the end of the day, you might have a KPI. Let's say it's a lead price, and I need to get a lead price of 100 rupees. But then I need to also get sales value of X.
Right.
And it could be that the only leads I could buy at 100 rupees are the ones that are never going to convert.
Right.
Where if I need to get the sale value, I might need to spend 500 rupees instead of 100 rupees. But because I'm being pinned here and kept to that price, and then I'm also having to put one over here and create that revenue at the back end, then it becomes a sort of an impossible task. So it's either you stick to a lead price or a CTR or a number of impressions or a final sale result, and then that's where we kind of hone in and
So
focus
sort of
towards.
what kind of KPI would you give Ben if he was managing your campaign?
Yeah, Ben is right. I think he's talking about me that we give him a lot of KPIs. But I think Ben is right when he says we should just focus on a single KPI. So my KPI to Ben would be leads, but also at a certain price benchmark, because we know what kind of leads, if we, like Ben is saying, if you fix the benchmark
So
very
is
low.
leads equal to brand?
No, branding is not what we are chasing. Branding, if you're chasing branding, then you should not be on search. You should be on on YouTube, on GDN, different tools. So search specifically.
So
is
you're
not
very
for branding.
clear in terms of, I think, when you're talking about brand, you want to do this. When you're talking about this, so you're pretty clear as well. So we've got a
absolutely.
great panel here. We've got, I think, the marketer, and we've got the agency saying the same language. So I think we should certainly applaud both of them. They're the perfect client agency on this panel for sure.
Though I don't agree on this whole leads versus brands versus sales argument.
Wow, Ramesh.
Because I
Join
think
in.
it's just it's futile. I mean, the truth is that a strong brand should drive strong sales, and if it doesn't, it's not a strong brand. I mean,
Sure.
or it's not a relevant. I mean, it may be a strong brand, but it's not relevant, or you're targeting it at the wrong person. So this whole debate about are you chasing brand or are you chasing sales is a real. We could spend more time
Sure.
some other day on it, but I don't agree with this one at all. So
So I think it's basically very different industries that we are coming from. Insurance, like you said, you can't differentiate between one product and the other, and that if a relatively new brand like ours launched in 2008,
Right.
and there are brands who have been around for like 1999 and 2000. So you got to compete in this market. You got to make sure that you go out there and make the consumer aware about your product. Not many of us, many of the brands consumers had heard about Aegon Religare before 2009. We were the first ones to launch an online term plan, and we had to use search and we had to generate leads. People are not just going to come and buy looking for Aegon Religare because they haven't heard of us. So we got to start either branding on a separate medium, which is not search, and then you also got to generate leads through people who are creating awareness. So if I am buying, I create awareness about my my product. I tell a friend, hey, I bought a term plan. It looks amazingly cheap. It's online. My agent was charging me 40 grand. It's available for 8 grand. Check it out for yourself. So I won't go and check for Aegon Religare, directly go to their site. I'll go on Google, do some research.
Sure.
So when I am in the research mode, I need the brand to be present there. And that can only happen if I am putting monies on search.
I think also if my objective is branding, then I'll have a very different KPI and metric. I'll look at things like, okay, has the guy come to my site and looked at 5 pages? And I'll optimize to that. Has he watched a video for 2 minutes? Have I done some sort of branded objective with that guy where he's interacted in some sort of way? And then my entire KPI is around that objective. So it's like, okay, if I'm going to get a brand message across, I need to make sure that whatever traffic I buy, he does that brand objective. And it might, so lead is just one objective, right? But I wouldn't want to say, right, I need to do this branding objective, and then I also need to do a transaction objective. I can't do that. It's not you have to have they're two totally different things. So it's sort of a, yeah.
First of all, my KPI for you would be create customer value or customer experience. Okay, and brand is part of that experience. And I think to equate brand to selling is really coming from a sales perspective rather than from a real marketing perspective. It might be the other way around, right?
Sure.
So I just thought I'd take a few examples.
Yeah.
How many of you, Hotmail still exists, but Hotmail, when they got started, they were the only ones in the email space that were free.
Yeah.
But that's not what really grew the brand. What grew the brand was that when they started communicating with people, they had a tagline which says, P.S. I love you. Okay? You take Evernote. How did they grow their brand? And if you really look...
Anyone knows Evernote in the audience? Wow, okay.
So if you look at Evernote and if you look at Hotmail, their sales sort of went up like this. Evernote also went up, and they managed to get 100,000 people to participate with them on a beta trial. And part of the beta trial was try it with your friends.
Sure.
And if you take Dropbox, how many know Dropbox?
Everyone does.
Everyone. So take Dropbox. They talked about getting your friends to come in for free and things of that sort. And when they started that campaign, suddenly their sales started to go up because the awareness went up, and it was all done by their customers. In all these cases, it was the customers that really sold their brand.
So therefore, you're saying that the consumer plays, I think, a very large role in terms of the overall. So anyone from the audience wants to take a dig in terms of asking a question to sort of, I think, one of the smart marketers here in terms of sort of what perhaps is one of the most challenging part of their one day itself in terms of sort of either chasing brand or either changing a transformation they're doing or even just hitting a sales number, because today we're sort of having targets every single day. Any question? Okay. Go for it, Dipali.
So my question to him is, when will he be able to take multiple KPIs for multiple customer segments on search?
Wow, it's a good one.
So it depends entirely on the KPIs and the customers and everything like that. I'll segments. That's fine. So basically, what you're saying is for this customer, I have one KPI. This customer, I've got another KPI. We can do that now. That's fine because it's a single KPI per customer, right? And so I can segment and say, right, for that segment, I've got a KPI. This segment, I've got a KPI. If I have multiple KPIs for the same customer, then it becomes very difficult, right? They'll be counterproductive. If I've got one customer, one KPI, that's fine. It depends. It depends on how much tech you've got on the back end and whether you're willing to obviously invest in that tech. So, yes, it will go straight back to you. If conditions definitely imply, there is technologies out there that will tell you exactly who the customer is, where he is, but whether you're willing to pay for that is another, or whether the investment comes into that is another matter. So it's really. But that's my it's my prerogative, I guess. But if the client comes with multiple KPIs and they're counterproductive, then we're never going to agree on anything, are we? We're going to end up sort of.
Ben's lucky. He's got some customers who are sort of very happy giving him just one KPI and sort of one of them, and sort of
only one KPI, and we operate to that KPI. Yeah, KPI set, but that's fine, right? That's a simple one, right? So yeah, and that's my favorite KPI, to be honest. Revenue at the back end. You get me revenue. No, it's not. To track it, yes, absolutely. So then we have, yeah. So we have to build a surrogate, which is a lead, right? So then you start with the lead, and then
No,
and there
it's
you
not
go.
like we only ask Ben for leads. He has a different KPI on remarketing. He has a different KPI
Yes.
on brand. He has a different KPI on search. So there's a different
But it's
KPI
one
on this.
KPI
But
per
one
segment, right?
So do you have different guys giving the different KPIs as well, sort of? So you've got like KPI man 1, KPI man 2, as in one man for one Ben.
These guys.
Just too much of a coincidence, right? So how was your experience ever working with, say, for example, an interactive agency, trying to sort of even give you, I think, KPIs for you?
So I've actually been an online sort of evangelist with Zomato. I've been an online and offline guy with McDonald's and with delivery, and then an offline guy with broadcast. So this whole KPI discussion is very, very interesting because on the internet it's still you can still maneuver your way through it. But believe me, working in a television channel, there used to be very,
Multiple.
very large and very sophisticated clients would come with multiple KPIs
Right.
for a show, for a TV. It's impossible. So but I think, and I'm just continuing from where I left the mic the last time, that finally sales has to be the only KPI. And what you need to figure out is at that point of time in whatever you're doing, whether it's search or whether it's display or whether it's television marketing or whatever you're doing, what's the role of the medium for an audience at that point of time in the sales process?
Sure.
And you've got to map it together because finally it's all got to come together as sales. And I'm also a believer that sales is a final experience. Advertising can only drive people to buy, or a salesman can drive people to buy. So you have leads, but finally.
So therefore, you're saying that, are you saying that the final transformation of brand happens when all the sales have happened?
It's true, isn't it? I mean, finally, what is the Apple brand? It's the machine in your hand.
Sure.
Advertising can only tease you into into buying it. I mean, in my view, I only feel the Apple brand because I only felt the Apple brand when I got the iPhone. Everything else teased me into.
Until you've got it in your hand, you can't.
Yeah, I mean
Okay.
the truth is I've done I don't know how many crores of advertising when I was at McDonald's, but the real brand is in the four walls of that restaurant. The real brand is not in the advertising. Advertising can at best try and reflect that brand or reflect the value proposition or whatever else you've got. So sales has to be the only KPI. I mean, I can't see any reason why anything else should ever be a KPI.
So what sort of, according to... Yeah, sure.
So if you meet a pricing guy, he'll say that the last mile of pricing is selling. Okay? And I say the last mile of pricing is buying, because someone's got to buy. And there's a slight difference in the selling and in the buying, right? So I just wanted to point that out. There's one more thing I think
Sure,
that
Gautam.
transforms businesses, because we've got some young MBAs here,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
And these young MBAs are all being taught to become executives.
Yes.
Well, so when you're outside of your office, you're all customers. The moment you walk into your office, you take off your customer hat and you put on your executive hat. And you start to look at the world entirely differently than if you were in the... I don't agree with that, but that's what happens. People forget that, and no one teaches executives to behave like customers.
Okay, so can we try and sort of get some questions for, I think there's a nice debate happening up on the stage, and we can sort of get more interest from you guys as well in terms of sort of either someone believing into, I think, the sort of... So, anyone for the questions? Or we're hungry for lunch?
I'm done.
You're done.
Otherwise, Ben might,
So Ben sorted. Ben suddenly going back with all the applause because he's like a one KPI man. But anyone else anyone else got any questions for Ben?
I'm happy with multiple KPIs as long as they don't counteract each other.
Wow, fantastic. Anyone? I think we're off for lunch, okay. Well, I think we've been a good audience. Thank you so much.